You already lost. And the worst part is you don't even realize it. While you're watching this, someone colder than you, more disciplined than you, and far less emotional, has already made decisions that will put you years ahead of where you're going to be. Not because they're smarter, not because they're lucky, but because they understand something you keep avoiding. Sun Tzu wrote this over 2,000 years ago. All warfare is based on deception. And if that's true, and it is, then your problem isn't the world. It's your mind. You wake up every day thinking you'll figure it out as you go, that you'll adjust later, that you'll react when the pressure comes. That's not bravery. That's strategic stupidity. You're walking into battles without defining the battlefield, without understanding the enemy, without deciding what winning even looks like. And then you call the outcome bad luck. Be honest with yourself. How many times have you started something fired up, only to abandon it halfway? How many times have you told yourself, I'll fix it later, once I'm more ready? Now isn't the right moment. Sun Tzu would have nothing but contempt for that mindset. Not hatred. Contempt. Because to him, a man who acts without strategy isn't unlucky. He's already defeated. And here's the part you don't want to, hear. Your biggest enemy isn't the system. It isn't the economy. It isn't your boss, your family, or your past. Your enemy is the fact that you enter wars without committing to win. Sun Tzu said, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. You know neither. You don't know the enemy because you label competition as unfairness. You don't know yourself because you refuse to sit alone long enough to face your weaknesses. You stay distracted, overstimulated, jumping from idea to idea, mistaking motion for progress. That makes you predictable. And predictable men are weak. Weak men are exploited. Exploited men lose. That's the chain. Sun Tzu didn't teach motivation. He taught the removal of human error. And the biggest human error is acting before understanding what kind of war you're in. You say you want money, freedom, status, but you move like someone at war who doesn't know who's on the other side, what terrain he's standing on, what resources he can afford to lose, and which ones he can't. So listen carefully. You're not tired. You're mispositioned. You don't lack discipline. You lack strategic clarity. And as long as you keep fighting undefined wars, you'll stay busy and keep losing. If this feels uncomfortable, good. That means it's working. Most people will leave now. They'll say this is too harsh, too extreme. Sun Tzu had a name for people like that. Acceptable losses. If you're still here, it's because you don't want comfort. You want control. Most people lose wars because they react. They wait to be hit before they move. They wait for pressure before they think. They wait for damage before they adapt. Sun Tzu would call that suicidal. Reaction is not intelligence. Reaction is surrender disguised as effort. When you react, you are already behind. You are letting someone else dictate the timing, the terrain, and the rules. You are playing their game, not yours. And the moment you play someone else's game, you've accepted their advantage. Sun Tzu understood something you haven't internalized yet. Time is a weapon. The man who moves first doesn't always win. The man who moves at the right moment does. And right now your biggest weakness is that you are loud, visible, and emotionally exposed. You announce your intentions too early. You talk before you act. You signal before you strike. That makes you easy to counter. Silence is not passivity. Silence is concealment. Sun Tzu wrote, appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak. You do the opposite. When you're weak, you talk big. When you're uncertain, you seek validation. When you don't know the next move, you post, you explain, you justify. You leak information constantly. Every complaint reveals your limits. Every excuse reveals your fear. Every emotional reaction reveals your pressure points. You are telling the world exactly where to hit you. The disciplined man does not do this. He delays. He withholds. He lets others reveal themselves while he remains unreadable. And this is where patience becomes violence. Sun Tzu didn't rush into battle. He let the enemy exhaust themselves first. While you're busy reacting to setbacks, arguing online, proving points that don't matter, someone else is letting Time do the work for them, mapping your weaknesses, and you never even notice. Because you think speed is power, it's not. Control is power. The man who controls time controls outcomes. That means knowing when not to move, when not to speak, when not to respond, especially when provoked. Provocation is bait. Emotion is the trap. If someone can make you angry, they can make you predictable. If they can make you predictable, they can beat you. That's why Sun Tzu valued calm above all else. Calm is not softness. Calm is dominance. A calm man sees more. A calm man thinks further. A calm man acts last and hits hardest. Look at your own life. How many bad decisions came from urgency? From fear of missing out? From pressure to respond, to decide, to move? You confuse urgency with importance. Your enemy loves that, because urgency compresses thinking. It narrows vision. It forces mistakes. The strategic man creates space. He slows the situation down. He refuses to be rushed. He understands that most threats collapse if you don't immediately engage them. Silence unsettles people. Delay destabilizes them. Non-reaction forces them to expose more, and exposure is intelligence. Sun Tzu said that battles are won by knowing the enemy's intentions before they know yours. Right now, everyone knows your intentions, your frustrations, your ambitions, your insecurities. You broadcast them daily. That ends here. In the next part, I'm going to show you how Sun Tzu used positioning and deception to win without fighting, and how you can apply the same principles to make people move around you without ever realizing they're being guided. If you're still listening, you're already ahead of most people. Power is not about force. Force is expensive. Force creates resistance. Sun Tzu understood that the highest form of control is not domination. It's positioning. He wrote, "The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting." That sentence alone explains why you keep losing battles you think you're fighting hard. You're trying to overpower situations that should have been engineered from the start. You argue when you should maneuver. You push when you should redirect. You confront when you should let reality do the damage for you. The strategic man doesn't collide with obstacles. He makes obstacles irrelevant. Positioning means this: when the moment arrives, your opponent has no good options left. Not because you blocked them, but because every path they can take benefits you. This is where most people fail. They announce their goals. They show their hand. They try to force outcomes directly. Sun Tzu would call that amateur warfare. Real strategy happens long before the conflict becomes visible. You don't change minds by attacking them. You change environments so that the only reasonable decision is the one you want. That requires patience. It requires emotional distance. And it requires something you rarely practice: thinking 2 or 3 moves ahead. Right now, you live inside the present moment, reacting to what's in front of you, solving surface problems. Your enemy lives in the future. They are preparing positions you haven't even noticed yet. And when you finally realize what's happening, the war is already over. This is why Sun Tzu emphasized terrain. Not just physical terrain, psychological terrain. Who controls the narrative? Who controls access? Who controls timing? Who controls perception? The man who controls these doesn't need to fight. Others fight on his behalf. You, on the other hand, keep stepping into unfavorable terrain willingly. You negotiate when you have no leverage. You speak when silence would create pressure. You reveal frustration when patience would create. Why Sun Tzu emphasized terrain. Not just physical terrain, psychological terrain. Who controls the narrative? Who controls access? Who controls timing? Who controls perception? The man who controls these doesn't need to fight. Others fight on his behalf. You, on the other hand, keep stepping into unfavorable terrain willingly. You negotiate when you have no leverage. You speak when silence would create pressure. You reveal frustration when patience would create advantage. And then you wonder why outcomes don't bend your way. Here's the hard truth. If people don't feel your absence as pressure, your presence has no power. Sun Tzu used scarcity before the word existed. He withheld engagement. He delayed confrontation. He let the enemy wonder, guess, and miscalculate. Uncertainty destabilizes. Clarity comforts. You give clarity too easily. You explain yourself. You justify your decisions. You seek understanding. Stop. Strategic silence forces others to fill the gaps with their own assumptions, and those assumptions are almost always wrong. That's how missteps happen. That's how leverage is created. The goal is not to be liked. The goal is not to be understood. The goal is to be unavoidable. When you are properly positioned, people adapt to you without realizing it. They concede ground, all while believing it was their idea. That is real power. And it doesn't look dramatic. It looks calm. It looks boring. It looks invisible, which is why most people will never have it. In the final part, I'll show you how Sun Tzu approached victory itself, why he avoided prolonged battles, how he knew when to strike and when to walk away without ego. Victory is not about destruction. It's about closure. Sun Tzu warned against prolonged wars for a reason. Long battles drain resources. They expose weaknesses. They create chaos where control should exist. Most people don't lose because they can't fight. They lose because they don't know when to stop. They stay in conflicts too long. They argue past the point of leverage. They chase validation instead of outcomes. That's ego. And ego is expensive. Sun Tzu avoided ego at all costs. He understood that the goal of war is not revenge, not dominance, not emotional satisfaction. It's advantage. They are allowing you to burn energy while they conserve it. They are watching your patterns, learning your habits. They change behavior. They lower resistance. And once advantage is secured, staying engaged is a liability. You don't need to crush everyone. You need to neutralize threats. You don't need to prove you're right. You need to exit ahead. But you stay. You keep responding, keep explaining, keep trying to win conversations that don't move your position forward. That's how momentum dies. A strategic man knows when the objective has been achieved and disengages immediately. No celebration, no announcements, no emotional attachment. Because the moment you get attached to winning, you start making mistakes to protect your image. Sun Tzu valued clean victories. Fast, quiet, decisive. If a battle required too much effort, too much exposure, too much noise, he would question whether it was worth fighting at all. Ask yourself something uncomfortable. How many battles are you fighting right now that don't improve your position? How many conflicts exist only because you refuse to let go? How much energy are you bleeding just to avoid feeling disrespected? That's not strength. That's insecurity wearing armor. The strongest position is the one that doesn't require defense. When you've already won, continuing to fight only creates new risks. Sun Tzu walked away often, not because he was weak, but because staying would reduce his advantage. You don't walk away. You linger. You overcommit. And every extra move increases the chance of error. Victory should feel anticlimactic. If it feels emotional, you waited too long. The disciplined man doesn't chase closure through conflict. He creates situations where closure is automatic. People stop pushing, stop resisting, stop challenging. Not because they were defeated, but because they no longer see a path forward. That's when you disappear. No explanations, no final statements, no need for recognition. You move on to the next position, while others are still processing what happened. Sun Tzu knew this. The war is only remembered by those who lost. The winner is already elsewhere. If this changed how you see power, control, and conflict, then you're thinking correctly. Most people won't. And that's why they'll stay exactly where they are.